go, make sure we go straight to, just give me your first name and your last name, a question, and if we can do another round and come back around, that would be great, but we're just gonna see if we can get some questions answered. Actually, I'm
Oh,
gonna
you're
start
gonna
here.
just go around the,
Yes.
okay, I'm sorry.
Michael Nebaker, I live in the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon, and we are a vigilante group removing graffiti from the granite boulders in Big Cottonwood and Little Cottonwood.
Thank you.
It has spread at an unbelievable rate, and it's related to drugs and crime and violence. And we've talked to Unified Police, we've talked to U.S. Forest Service, we've got Cottonwood Canyon Foundation involved, we've talked to West Valley City Graffiti Task Force, and we've cleaned over 300 boulders that
You can spray.
look like that.
Oh my.
That's benign. It's the F word, the N
Yeah.
word, the C word. It's just horrendous what's happening in our canyon on Salt Lake County's watch, which is inexcusable.
So what do you think? What are your
It's funding. It comes down to funding. So we've talked to Unified Police. They need funding so that they can have off-duty patrol officers go up there from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's when they're doing it.
Okay.
They're now tagging back. So we clean rocks and they say tag you're it. Yeah, they know who we are. We know who they are. Sim Gale's not prosecuting. There was $4 million earmarked to pave the Dimple Dell path. That was turned down by the community. We'd like that $4 million to go to Unified.
Okay.
So we can
Is there
have
any effort
off-duty.
to look at who's doing it and prosecuting those who are,
Fines are low, judges are lenient.
fines are low, judges are lenient, so they're just getting out?
Yes.
Okay. Because I mean, the funding is one thing, right? But the last thing we want is to have to repeat it over and over and over again. We've gotta figure out a way.
And so month after
Yeah.
month, we're out there every weekend.
Especially because
cleaning.
they're saying tag you're it. I mean, it's a lot of, you know,
Right.
have to go back.
So if somebody went down to Delicate Arch and spray painted, the F word across the arch, the nation would be outraged.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so these are the big granite boulders that still have the holes drilled into them
right.
by the early pioneers to build the Salt Lake Temple. We have an $8 billion tourist industry. We employ 144,000 people in tourism. They come to see our mountains
Okay.
and those boulders and lakes and rivers and streams. And it's a malaise in society that is creeping into our canyon, that for the people who live up there and are sort of the steward of those canyons, it's become unacceptable.
Would it help to bring some attention, some public attention to it and?
KSL has
to have
covered it in the
everybody-
past.
Okay, to see if we can get everybody to at least get on the same page in terms of like, prosecuting and, or at least, making those, define who they are, making them clean it up. Do something that is actually going to change the behavior.
So, from everything that I've learned, it comes down to funding so that Unified can be up there to monitor at 2, 3 in the morning, arrest the people who are doing it,
Okay.
and then have some teeth, with the law to prosecute. And that's a great idea, to have them up there cleaning with
Okay.
us the graffiti, because it takes elephant snot, which is a goo that you wipe on with a brush.
Is it actually? No.
Oh, it's
It's
not
called-
really from elephant, but it's called that. But it's exactly what it sounds like. Goopy, toxic, biodegradable.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, then you have to go up with a high pressure washer.
Washer.
We take generators up there, we get water from the stream, we have the permission from the U.S. Forest Service and Cottonwood Canyon Foundation and Unified
But it's
Police.
quite a bit. Thank you.
It's a lot of work, you're welcome.
Yes.
I'd
But
love
we
to,
can't do it all ourselves,
and
and
you
it's
know
spread
what?
to all the canyons.
I'd love to help if, in whatever I can do, so let me know, I'd love to help, I'd even love to come out and help you do some cleanup.
Well, we'd love to have you come and see what's happening up there.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Hi, Mia.
Hello, Marla, how are you?
So just for the group that's here, I was in the race against Mia last year and withdrew in favor of Ben McAdams. And we have been urging Mia to have an open town hall for 1,000 days now. And so
What do you
we're
mean 4,000 days?
1,000 days. It's been 1,000 days since you've had an open town hall.
Well, this is,
It's not a real town hall.
well,
It's a-
okay, I'm sorry, okay, I'm not gonna argue with the
No, we
definition
don't
of
need,
a
we
town
don't,
hall,
we don't,
but
we don't need
we're,
to. I'll
I
just have
guess-
my say and leave.
Okay.
Okay, so we would like you to have an open town hall, open to everyone, all of your constituents. And that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Erica Brayman. I live in Mill Creek. They kind of came together. And my question is mostly, so I'm able to make it here as, you know, a young person with a full-time job because I set my own hours. I'm really lucky in that I get to kind of choose when I get my work done. But I found that is generally true when I go to political events. There's very few people my age who are there, and there's very few people like younger families or people who are working class who work full-time. I was talking to people earlier saying I know a bunch of people who work full-time and drive for Uber or something. So I'm able to be here. I know because of the time and that these things take place generally, a lot of people who have real problems and who want to be heard and who are currently not being heard can't make it to things like this. So I was just wondering.
So we do a lot of, so people who can't make it, we've done, that's why we do all sorts of different types of town halls. We've gone to places of people's work, we've gone to homes, we've done telephone town halls. A lot of people don't like those, but when you can't travel and people don't have access to, you know, whether it's being able to come or a specific time they can get on,
the
listen
telephone
and
channel
talk.
sounds, and I believe that was a thing that was proposed at some point.
No, I've done
Usually it's during
quite a bit.
rush hour traffic.
No,
And
we've
you have
done
a
it,
person
we've done
from
it at
Texas
6,
answering questions.
hang on a second, we've done it at 6, we've done it at 7, we've done it as far as 8 also. We try and do it when it's hard to do it earlier because there are people that are coming home from work, and so we wanna make sure that people are able to get home, so we do it at those hours because that's when we have the majority of the participation.
It's very
We
difficult to
also-
have a dialogue
We-
at a telephone.
But it's very difficult to have a dialogue at a big town hall
Not if it's,
also.
not if it's properly
It-
organized.
Well, we've seen them, and it's very difficult
We
to
have
have these one-on-one conversations. And it's perfectly fine. What's nice is that there are a lot of people, and I know that you disagree, but there are a lot of people that appreciate and like this process because
Sure.
they feel like it's less intimidating, they feel like they can come and actually have one-on-one where the other ones, you don't have that time. And
Yeah.
we also do one-on-one meetings also.
I think it would be nice if you
If
do
there's a
both.
family, we do quite a bit. So this is an environment that I think is respectful, it's safe, people feel like they can have a dialogue, and we've gotten more out of that. I believe that this has made me a more effective.
I haven't heard of most of these other things that you've
Me
mentioned,
neither.
and it was hard to find out about this one since it wasn't really publicized, and then on the website, it was very hard to sign up. I had to do it like 3 times, I think, and I never got an email back. So,
Either did I.
just, even if the format stays the same, just like more of an effort to really make it known to the wider public who isn't maybe checking your website, or I don't get stuff mailed from your office because I think I'm not registered Republican, and so I don't get.
No, we
I can
actually, our
block.
official office it's not just a registered, we don't send information to registered Republicans. If you are not getting any mail or information, we're happy to take your name so that
That
you
would
can
be
get.
great.
But
And I
we
do
actually
get her
have a list,
information,
yeah.
and I get her
We send them
emails.
to everyone in the district.
Okay,
So,
because I've been here for a year and a half,
So,
and so probably just don't have
yeah,
that information.
maybe
But that would be great. I would
your
love to.
name's not in the system or something, but we try and, that's why it's not just the website, it's not just Facebook pages, it's also mail that we send out, it's also, we try and communicate as much as we possibly can.
Okay.
There's 671,000 people in the 4th district. We're doing everything we can to get information out. But I want you to know also that anytime, if you feel like you need to have more of a conversation, you wanna talk a little bit or even have a one-on-one, or I'm happy to schedule some time, and we can schedule some time also to chat about issues that are important to you.
Hi, Mia, how are you?
I'm doing well, how are you?
Good, my name is Kim Cockrell. Cockrell. Ckrell. And I live in South Jordan.
Okay.
The reason why I'm here today is in regards to the current administration. And, to tell you a little bit about myself, I am from Utah, born and raised. I signed up with the GOP when I was 18. Reagan was my guy.
My dad too.
And I, to be honest with you, the last 4 or 5 years I've become really disillusioned, especially the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, are you going to choose country over party? Because I believe that that is going to be a deciding factor for my vote. Because I believe that the House and the Senate needs to have, the House and the Senate doesn't hold the administration accountable. And that needs to happen.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
my question.
I'll be completely frank with you. I am not, my job is not to follow a person because of the letter behind their names. As a matter of fact, I've taken on my own leadership, especially on the immigration issue. And I am not here or elected by them. I have also taken on the president several times on things that I disagree on. The thing that I'm currently in disagreement with is the trade
Yes.
policies or the lack thereof in terms of a strategy. I've made those issues very well known. My job is not to follow what the president does. As a matter of fact, he should be following Congress. There are people, and I continue to correct my colleague, that sit there and say over and over again, we need to stand behind the president. Well, it's not our job to do that. His job is to stand behind us. We're the legislative
Exactly.
body.
Thank you.
We're the
Thank you.
legislative body, and, and one of the things that I think that we should all be doing is removing power from the White House. I think that there's too much power that's been consolidated in the White House, and that's why it's affected our lives so much.
Yes.
If the president did nothing but just sign laws that are enacted by Congress, at least you would know you had a voice, and your voice was the one that's actually being.
You stood
being
with
put into
Trump
law.
when he was here and destroyed our national body.
Hang on, I
Congress.
wanna come back, I'll
Yes.
come back and talk about that if you'd
Thank
like
you.
to. But there are times where if I believe that somebody is doing the right thing, I'll say it, but when it's time, when they're doing the wrong things, I have no problem saying that also. And I've done that, at the, maybe disagreement from maybe some of the more conservative group here, but that's not, they didn't send me here to follow someone. So I want you to know that I am a voice for Utah, not a voice for the White House.
That's good to hear.
I have not been. When he made horrible comments about a country that my parents are from, I went after him.
Yes.
And got into the White House and said, look, this is, this is inappropriate. These are not things that are indicative of who we are as Americans. And so I'm going to continue to call you out when you do things like that. So I respect the office. I respect the position that we have here, and I always tell my kids not to follow anybody's Twitter, follow mine. Follow mine.
Yeah.
But that's and we'll continue to do that. I mean, I took on Peter Navarro pretty hard on this trade issue.
Okay.
I found him to be incredibly arrogant, and I had to tell him that it would actually do him some good, even though he thinks he wrote the book on trade. It would actually do him some good to listen to what we are saying and how those trade policies are affecting us. So
Excellent.
that is going to be a continued commitment that I'll make to you. That
All right.
I'm not here to follow an administration. I'm here to support when he does something good, especially bringing power back to the House, but to go after him when he doesn't.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Can I excuse myself? I've got
Yes,
a fire to put out.
absolutely. We will keep in touch about
Okay,
it.
I'll talk to Laura.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
all the
for
work
what
you're
you do.
doing.
Yes.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
I
Thank you for
hope
what
you
you're
get the
doing.
federal funding you need to do that.
Well, it's local funding, but.
The local funding, federal wouldn't hurt, right?
I'm Jonathan Peterson,
Hi,
and it's
Jonathan.
a pleasure to see you
Nice
again.
to see you.
We've known each other for,
Yeah.
since 2015, when I presented some proof about corporate bribery.
Yeah.
But my main purpose today is to defend the unborn, which you are
Yeah.
outstanding.
Yeah.
And when you compare to everyone else, and I do compare, that the unborn are still not being defended properly in court. I've spent 8 years working on Constitution violations, and I'm pretty sure you understand they're logical and they're they're good, because if you ask doctors in court that question, and I don't care if it's pro-choice doctors, because I've given it to several in person. They teach, 2 of them teach at University of Utah. And then they thank me, and then they leave that Quinney Law Symposium that I went to. We're ready to use this. I know the governor, I know the attorney general, I know the US attorney. If you were to call any of those offices and ask their staff if they have that doctor survey and why aren't they making it public, they wouldn't lie, but they're waiting for someone of importance to say, this doctor survey is filed and ready to be used.
Okay.
And we know how,
What is,
that just shows that I filed back with the governor. And the other side was the 2-year anniversary of when I first filed with Governor Herbert and Mr. Reyes, our Attorney General. And then I filed with the Department of Justice, and I filed with each legislator. And there's a whole bunch of doctors, there's 5 doctors always. And they won't give me their opinion unless I subpoena them. But they're under oath.
tell me what, so Ashley, you have a question for me?
Will you make this public, finally? That's for you. That's showing a picture of Representative Red and Mike Kennedy, who I know well. And I have asked him in public, and they will not give their opinion until they're either forced to, or if the news would just cover that is filed with all 3 branches of government and ready to be used. Because no expert is gonna look at that proof about when scientifically life begins and say at some later point in time. They're just not gonna do it. You know that.
Well, I can tell you, obviously, I don't think it's surprising to anyone here that, I've been an advocate for life. This is an incredibly sensitive issue because there are real lives that are involved here, and there are people, women that are literally, they have real struggles in there, and I think that it's important for us to make sure that we are not, we're not victimizing people or making them feel. I think that we need to give as many options, as much education as possible before people have to choose between picking to choose a life or ending a life. And so I think that we need to be a little bit more proactive in that area. One of the things that I have done, just so you know, is one of the proposals to try and get contraceptives over the counter so that people can be able to get access to them. Because I think it's a very pro-life stance, actually.
Actually,
to be able to.
I suggest we don't defund Planned Parenthood. You give them bigger budget, but you force the law that unborn, just like somebody on death row, they have a right to defend their life with expert witnesses. And this has been sitting, I guarantee you, President Obama and Loretta Lynch, they had this through the FBI and Department of Justice 2.5 years ago. There's no way that you don't ask a doctor this question once you know it's filed. Nobody's doing it. Either fear or they just don't care. I know that's not your case. I know you want to defend them. All you have to do is ask any doctor. I've asked a bunch of doctors, and some of them are my old doctors from Idaho. I went up there, and they're like 80, one's 80 years old.
Okay.
That they won't give their opinion.
Okay, I wanna get to the other questions. I wanna get
Sure.
to.
Will you do something with this?
I'm going to look at this. I have a really hard time, forcing, people
No.
to do something.
It isn't forcing, it's just call the Attorney General or the Governor or Senator Lee and Hatch and say, do you have this doctor survey?
And you said you've spoken to Senator Lee and you've spoken to.
And their staff knows, but they're gutless. I love them, but they're gutless. So is the Governor and the Attorney General. As
Sir, we're
long-
gonna have to
I've
move on
gotta
to
get-
Susan.
I've
I'm
gotta
sorry.
If you would call
We get your
Reyes and.
I'll call him and ask him about that.
And
need
then
to get
report
a
to the
little bit more.
police, report to the news, that's all we need. It's for your voice to say the doctor survey exists. If you'll do that, we'll use it, and let me tell you, we'll fix this unethical, there's the,
I've gotta get to Susan.
I
I
know.
gotta run out. We have
Yes,
to be
sir,
fair. Okay.
You probably remember that from 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm Susan Golding. I live in South Salt Lake. A year and a half ago, when we got our new administration, there was a ban, a Muslim ban on our leader. And at that time, I sent you a letter, and I said, Mia, stand up, get on the desk, stand up and stand up for these people. I didn't get an answer. I didn't get a reply. I did get blocked. I didn't get to go back in. I've been on your Facebook and your political site, and often I get blocked. I've got to go back in.
The only
and I
time that
cannot.
anybody, I'm going to maintain this because I wanna make sure that the record is straight. The only time that anyone actually gets blocked from, there's usually a warning, Rich is here to attest because he's the one that actually does all of that, is that if there is, offensive language that is used, or what are our policies on that?
No political statements, no video links to political statements.
Video links, if you're linking to something
I don't
else,
know
if you're
how
doing
to
anything like that, so
Abusive language.
I'm just, those are the only reasons why anybody
I have not been
would get
abusive. I
blocked.
have been disagreed. I disagreed with what.
I'm
your
okay,
point
we have a
was.
lot of people that disagree, I'm okay with that, I'm perfectly
Well,
fine
each
with
time
that,
I've
but,
disagreed, I can't get back into your side.
okay, well, that's not,
So,
I'm just going to be,
I
very
did not
clear
get
with
an
your-
answer to that, but I picked, there were so many issues, and I did pick two, the immigration being one. I was glad when you stood up to the president, but I wished you had done it earlier, because the problem started earlier. I think that we need to be really quick on this kind of thing and stop it. These babies are just breaking my heart. But the other issue that I picked is the accessibility. I don't want to frighten you with these. I've given them to Laurel already. These are letters from constituents who could not be here from CD4. We put our 2 cents in real, and we put a copy of 2 cents to get our 2 cents in. Some of us did not want to come because a minute is too short of our time. When you said we couldn't tape record it or video this conversation, that would be one way to get it out to the people who can't come here. They could listen to
well,
what
the
you
problem
say.
is that videos and different things, that's why we allow the media to come in, videos and different things like that can be manipulated, I know, because I've seen it, so I just wanna
Well,
make sure
even
that
if you
those
did
are
the video,
things.
I mean, if you made it so it wasn't, like,
We're
You got
recording
it.
it
We
right
actually
there,
have a
ma'am.
video
We're gonna
recording.
post it.
yeah, but then share it. I haven't been able to see anything from any of your cottage meetings or your, what was that other one called before that? That you had a lot of donors go to, and when you go to your
What are you
business
talking about? I'm
meetings.
sorry, what donors, what are you talking about?
The one before your cottage meeting, that I knew about the cottage meeting, I had an invitation, but I still couldn't get in. I got it from my friend who lived in CD2, who had an invitation, who was not a CD4 person. She called and said, aren't you following me, love? I've got an invitation. I'm like, well, yeah, but, so I think that
So your friend was able to get in that lives in CD2?
she was not interested in coming because she can't vote for
Oh,
you.
should you get, so
But she
somebody
got
from
the
CD2 got it?
invitation. Somebody on your staff lives behind her and they're friends, so she sent her the invitation. So I don't know.
Oh, okay, so it was just somebody on the staff that sent her an invitation, it wasn't,
But she could have gotten in, but I
okay,
did not.
that's a campaign, that was more of like on the, a campaign side, we don't specify anybody on the official side. So that was,
But
that
even
cottage meeting that
when we
you
were
went to,
there, you wouldn't let us in.
that was on the campaign side, and that was somebody's home, and they were the ones that wanted to set something up, so that's on the campaign side, that's not on the official side.
Well, I guess I just think that, like when you
Well, you're
videotape
here,
this,
yeah.
show it to us. Let us see it. Let us hear the questions people ask. Let us hear the answers you give. Because we haven't been able to hear your answers. We can't get to you. We've tried. I mean, you know how much CD4 is
Well,
trying
you're
to get
here.
hold of you.
You've always, you've
I'm
gotten to me,
here
you're
with
here.
all these people who could not be here because they're at work, and more people who did not come. This short time, with only the questions here, I would like to hear questions from the 9,000 people that vote for you. I would like to be able to hear their questions and hear your
That's
response.
fair, but at least you could admit that we're actually, you wanna hear the answers to that, but you can actually admit that we're actually getting people to talk to us.
I don't know
or
if you
asking
saw
those
any
questions.
footage or reports on our town hall for all, but when you didn't come, we had a panel of experts and we asked, it was so nice. I do believe that you have maybe unfairly thought that we were going to do what happened at Chaffetz. We would not.
And Stewart.
And Stewart, well,
And,
Stewart's
yeah.
was not as bad as Chaffetz, but Chaffetz, and I don't wanna go into that, that's not my big issue, but I think there were a lot of things set up to again, He didn't have the microphone set up, he didn't have the questions set up, there were some issues that made people angry while he was there. I think that we could set one up that would keep you safe, we could even put you in a room, a bubble, so that nobody can attack you.
This is not about that. To me, it's about effective dialogue. It's about dialogue where I can actually go and get answers like this and say, okay, this is how I want, this is what I want, this is what I want from you, these are the specific things that I want, and I can go back and actually have a dialogue. I have not seen one of those where there was actually dialogue like this, and again, this is, you know, I'm not gonna get into the specifics of how, there are some real threats out there, and it's not you, because I've seen you, you're here, but there are some real threats out there. My 15-year-old daughter was approached while walking to school by somebody that was waiting for her to walk to school in front of her friends. That's not okay. I have to have a way to protect not just the constituents that come here, but my family.
Oh,
And so I
yeah.
just wanna be very clear, she's 15, and that's what she explained to this person that was very aggressive towards her. She's like, I'm 15, you should probably talk to an adult.
So that
And
happened
so-
in your neighborhood?
That happened, actually, it was somebody that didn't live in the neighborhood that watched where my child was walking to school.
But
So I
it's-
just wanna be very clear that, you know, it's not like we're experiencing, we're in a place where, people are very, I need to create a safe environment for people to be able to express their thoughts and to speak to me.
Well,
And
understand.
like I said, you may disagree, but I'm doing everything I can, to communicate with my constituents.
Okay,
If
we're
you
gonna move
would
on to the
publish,
next group.
That'd be great, if you know, put online where we could see these small.
Yeah.
We have done that before.
Yeah,
But
we
if
have
you
done that,
do
we
it-
have done that before, and we'll continue to do that.
If you do this
We
one.
put them on the website, they were there, and we'll.
So Mia needs to move on, thank you
Okay.
very much.